Right. So we are now live.
Hello.
Hi there.
What's your name?
I'm Gyles.
And I'm Vanetta. And we are those Morrisons.
Right. So
welcome to episode 2 of our live Q&A today. Thank you so much all for tuning in. As discussed, we've got some special guests on our episode today, and we'll be talking to them a little bit later. We're starting off now just a little bit with an introduction from a faith perspective, as you had last week as well. And then we'll carry on. So bring your questions. We're here to answer them. Happy to help with any questions that you might have. Okay, so this week, the scripture that that was highlighted to me was wisdom is justified by her children. So that's in Matthew 11:19. And it's one of my favorite scriptures. I always refer back to it because it basically says, you will know if somebody is wise by the consequences of their actions. And I think especially related to Corona, that's really important this week. There's so many different opinions at the moment. There's so many different countries applying different measures, although most countries are now going down the route of taking things more seriously and of going down the lockdown route. So we don't, but we don't really know how sure we can be of how wise those decisions are until we see more consequences of those actions. The healthcare systems at the moment are literally being tested for the quality of the care that they're providing right now. So wisdom is being shown by how different healthcare systems are responding to this crisis. Of course, it is a crisis for everyone. No one is sailing through it. But there might be some places that are doing better than others. And there's time for us to just learn the lessons of actually what should we be doing in that. As Christians, we know that we can pray for wisdom for our leaders, pray for wisdom for ourselves and how to handle the situation. And that's what we want to encourage you to do. Ask God for wisdom for yourself. Ask God for wisdom for leadership, because we don't really have the luxury to wait to see what the consequences are of decisions. We're just praying for wise decisions right now. And yeah, so just want to leave you with James 1:5. If anyone lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given to him. So remember that, please. Have you got anything to say to that, Giles?
No, I think wisdom is a crucial thing at the moment, and there is certainly a place for us to be praying for more wisdom and actually trying to seek more wisdom, but also reflecting that there's a lot of people out there who also have learned the hard way how things are going to play out with COVID-19. We need to be listening to people who have been affected by this across the world, particularly in Asia and now in Italy and Spain. There's a lot of lessons learned on how we can respond as healthcare professionals, how we can respond as citizens, how can we respond actually as leaders of a nation as well. And if we don't actually start tuning in to what's going on and actually thinking about how other people have been responding, we're going to actually suffer rather than actually building on those lessons learned. So this is a particularly big issue that we're facing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we've got a comment here. Hi, Natasha.
Hi, Tasha. Good to see you.
They're not seeing. So yeah, we're going to have two guests joining us shortly, just to highlight in particular what's been going on with COVID-19 in Italy, and also the response that the NHS has had with trying to encourage more doctors to come back to the NHS. It's quite a difficult topic. For those who aren't already aware, Vanetta and I now reside in Germany. We moved here back in October to take on a new job. And so as much as I used to work as a doctor 5.5 years ago, I'm not really in a practical position to go and provide services in the UK. I've got a full-time job and I'm based in Germany. But it is challenging, it's very easy to feel pressured to just go back.
Yeah.
And I have to be honest, there was a reason that I left. This isn't quite the right forum to go into that in great detail, but I needed to go through a career development process, and it changed my career to be more involved with technology. And I've done that so I can still go back to the healthcare industry, but still do something that I enjoy in my career. And I'm not going to be the only person who's done that. And it's quite difficult when you do face what is, in my opinion, an emergency situation. I don't think it's something that we should be taking for granted, what's happening. But at the same time, there are many, many ways for people to be able to support what's going on with COVID-19. And it's not actually the place for loads of doctors actually just to go back there's a place for us to be doing stuff out in the community. And this rallying call for 250,000 volunteers for the NHS, most of those people are actually doing stuff in the community, which is invaluable. Like, there's definitely going to be people, not just the elderly, who are going to be isolated at home, who are not in a means to do any shopping, and it's important that we have got a coordinated effort amongst citizens in countries around the world who can help each other. And, it's not just actually what can we do for people who are sick now and dying in hospitals, but rather what can we do for people to even prevent them getting sick in the first place, people who are actually suffering at home. So I'm really encouraged to know that there's so many people that are lending their support to that cause.
Yeah. I want to kind of touch on a little bit on the fears side of things. Obviously, a lot of us have now been told to work from home where we can. And it's now for us to look at how do we actually manage this. This is the time where if you're a leader, if you're a manager, this is where you prove yourself. This is where you need to guide the attention of your team as best possible, even though you're no longer in one location. Now is the time to kind of test your problem solving muscles. When we talk about, preparing for interviews and, you need to clarify where have you solved the problem. This is one of the moments where you need to be able to show that you are a problem solver. There's so many resources out there to help with how to best work from home, how to manage your team, how to ensure that your productivity isn't going to be affected. And from my perspective, obviously as a counselor and as a coach, just a reminder that there is a 50% discount on all my packages, all my hourly rates, because I want to help you to manage this process the best way you can, offering one-to-one coaching, offering one-to-one counseling. Also be releasing kind of like an ABC of thriving during quarantine next week. So tackling anxiety, tackling boredom, tackling creativity, and the many other things that you need to consider at this time. Let me know and they will be delivered through small group sessions. So let me know if you've got any questions. Let me know if there's anything that you want to see in the program. More than happy to get your suggestions. Just email me at info@blueprintway.com, or just visit blueprintway.com, the website. You'll get information on that as well.
Yeah. So I actually was listening to a recording on BBC. So this was on the Nolan show, and an A&E consultant called in, Dr. Al. It's a half an hour recording. It's quite shocking, actually. I'm going to post this so that hopefully you guys can actually have a listen to it a bit later. But this particular recording, it highlights just how severe the situation is that the doctors are facing and other healthcare professionals in the hospital. And Dr. Al just highlights right from the get-go that actually the best thing for people to be doing is just staying at home. It's really underestimated the power of just staying at home and really following the measures of social distancing. So the main thing, for example, that people aren't keeping in mind is that, say you are absolutely fine now, you may still be carrying the disease. You don't know if you could be spreading it to somebody else. So when Dr. Al goes into, he explains quite shockingly, if I'm honest, it is quite painful to listen to him explain the fact that he is willing to die to try and treat patients. And he recognizes that his life genuinely is at risk because his whole life at the moment is consumed by working 12-hour shifts in the hospital as an A&E doctor. He's not going to take any time off. If he gets sick, he'll self-isolate to try and reduce symptoms, but the chances are he's already infected and probably spreading it to patients. But he can't focus on that fact because he still can provide so much benefit to patients. And so it's really, really difficult to hear him explain this situation and the severity of it, but it is real. And people aren't hearing this story. Like they keep thinking, I've heard a recording from another elderly lady. She's about 75. She's like, this whole social lockdown is just a waste of time. And, she's still gone to go and see friends, who are in their 70s as well. And she doesn't mind if she dies as a result of doing this. And I'm like, it's just an irresponsible and selfish view. The fact that, she's willing to die, to go out and just socialize, but there's so many other people who don't deserve that. There's definitely a lot of young people who are dying from COVID-19, not just getting very, very sick, which is another issue we want to talk on a bit more later, but people who are under the age of 40 are dying. There's even a case that's being explored in the US of someone under the age of 18 dying. It's still not been confirmed, but they're investigating this, and they're investigating it because actually there is a genuine risk to people dying of any age.
Yeah, there was a news report that I read on the BBC about a 21-year-old in Buckinghamshire who's passed away because of corona, and she doesn't have any underlying health conditions, and her mum is pleading to the public to say, don't just see it as, oh, it's just an elderly people problem, or it's just a problem for people who've got underlying health conditions. Yeah, it is a problem for everyone.
No, it's really, really severe. I think the other things that I thought was quite shocking that Dr. Al was explaining is that actually there's only a 70% sensitivity of the COVID-19 test that's being utilized at the moment, particularly in the NHS. So what that means is that there's times when people have been seen to be negative who actually are positive. Now, this is significant because unless we're testing loads and loads of people, we're still going to be missing people who are probably infected. And generally speaking, it's best to actually just assume that you're likely to catch it and stay away.
Yeah,
it's better because yes, and this is a really important science fact, most people will not actually be sick with COVID-19, but it's those that do get sick can get really, really sick. And some of them are dying, and we don't have any cures for them. It's just supportive treatment. You know, and we look at the number of deaths. Number of deaths is quite an important number to see because it means how many people just could not survive the disease, and how many people actually couldn't get any treatment that could save them in a hospital setting. You know, we keep looking at also the total number of people who have been tested positive for COVID-19. That doesn't mean much. It just means how many people have actually been tested and then proven to be positive.
Exactly.
There could be 10 to 100 times more that amount of people who are actually still infected by the disease, who may never get tested.
Yeah. We've had Tracy. Hi, Tracy. Thanks so much for joining us. Mentioned that Netherlands, for example, doesn't believe in staying at home, for instance. And again, it's for us, from our perspective, it's shocking. But ultimately, the final judgment can only be passed after this is all blown over and seeing who's come out of it the most robust, I guess, or the least harmed, or with the least death tolls. But every single death, and sometimes we get lost in the big numbers, every single death affects a family, affects a community. And we're talking about how many 140,000? No, that's recovered.
Well, the amount of people
who've died now. We're just looking at the most up-to-date figures.
See if I can find the most up-to-date.
I've got it. So it's 20,000.
21,000.
Yeah, almost 21,000 deaths now. That is a community. That is 20,000 communities affected, 20,000 families affected. And sometimes we need to just bear that in mind. So if countries like the Netherlands are saying, actually, we don't believe in staying at home, okay. You know, but we will see in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 3 months, 4 months, what that effect will have on your family, what that will have on people who are living in the Netherlands, but also maybe people outside of it as well, because we're such a global community. So
I think that the problem as well that people are having is that when they hear of COVID-19 and they know that people are dying, they still constantly think, well, it is basically flu that you're catching.
Yeah.
You know, it's different now if someone's like, in fact, Trevor Noah was raising this in his show, The Daily Show, today or recently, the fact that if it actually caused people to turn into zombies, then for sure people would just suddenly change their attitude.
Yeah.
You know, if it actually seemed like, oh, suddenly you just burst open, you know, your arm just drops off, then suddenly people will be taking it more seriously, even if it's affecting just as many people.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's something about people just playing down the symptoms and how serious it is. Getting it is what's causing part of the problem, because there's definitely people out there who think that it's still a conspiracy. Might even think that all these numbers of deaths that is being reported could be a lie. I'm like, it's not a lie. It's real. Like, people are actually dying from this, and it is really, really stressing so many healthcare systems around the world. We need to take it seriously.
And I think one thing to those who might not believe in it or see it as a conspiracy, I think one thing that we definitely can agree on that is become the number one value across the world, unfortunately, is money.
Yeah.
And so if so many countries are willing to put the economy at risk because of this, then it can't be a lie.
Yeah.
You know, people are talking about loads of unemployment rates shooting up. You know, people's economies looking like the American economy, for example, looking like before, worse than in the Great Depression and things like that. Money seems to be the most important value in the world, unfortunately, right now. And so if governments are saying, actually, for the sake of lives, let's stop looking at money, then there must be some truth behind that.
Yeah.
There must be some truth behind that. Right, I know we're going to be joined by Debbie shortly, but did you want to talk a little bit about Matt Hancock and the volunteers?
Yeah, I'm really glad that Matt Hancock is actually asked for so many people to be coming to support with the NHS. And crucially, it's not just people coming back to be working as healthcare professionals. It's actually people to be actually going to people's homes to deliver food, to check in on them, to deliver medication, which is another thing people forget. Like, there's people who are sick, that genuinely sick, chronic illness is sick, with nothing to do with COVID-19, but they're not going to get access to their medications if places keep closing down and they don't have access to public transport. So having all these people being able to be available is important. I think one thing about the ventilator situation is something that I want to touch upon briefly, though. You know, it's something that actually Dr. Al said in that BBC on the Nolan show on the radio. The fact that if things keep escalating, it's going to get to a point where there's 8 patients for 1 ventilator. And why this is particularly bad is that it's going to mean that the consultants and other medical teams are going to have to think about which patients they're likely to keep alive. They're going to put on a ventilator. And it's not a joke using ventilators. Me, as someone who's medically trained, worked as a doctor for 3 years, I never had to manage someone on a ventilator. That's not within the training of someone as a junior doctor. This is, you know, very, very advanced medical therapy. It's very specialist skill, and it's not something you can just teach in a matter of minutes or even hours. The science and the practicalities on just getting used to using the equipment on different types of patients actually takes months to really get used to. And even calling back doctors to come back and other healthcare professionals, if you never used a ventilator before, let alone haven't used a ventilator for years, you could be a liability. And, you know, us just getting loads of ventilators isn't the only part of the problem here, isn't the only solution. We need to be thinking, do we actually have the personnel trained to do the work? Do we actually have the space for patients so they can be put on a ventilator, and the associated nursing care to look after these patients? It's worrying. It's very, very worrying. I think on that note, I think it would be great for us to get our first guest. What do you think? Yeah,
let's do that. We are really happy to have you here with us, Debbie Levitt of DeltaCX.com. Hello.
Hey, everybody. How are you?
Good, thanks. Good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us.
You too. Thanks for bringing me in for whatever I know.
I think it's really important for us to kind of get the experience and get the insight from people who are kind of on the ground, because I think a lot of us still feel quite removed from the problem. Even though we're being told to stay at home, a lot of us still don't fully understand the extent of the issue. And Debbie, you're an American living in Italy. Can you give us a bit of an insight of what the situation in Italy is right now?
Yeah, so let me roll back a little bit. So, you know, we got the order to lock down, I think it was Monday, March 8th, we got the order, and then it was going to go into effect Tuesday, the 10th. And now I'm not in the areas that were locked down before. So before that, they had like Milan and some of those main areas already locked down because they were having patients. I'm outside of those areas. So then we heard that we were going to be locked down, the whole country. And when that went into effect, a lot of people didn't necessarily change their behavior. Here in the town where I live, my boyfriend went into the town and he found that everyone was hanging out in the bar and sitting right next to each other and drinking and not staying home, not staying away from each other, like they didn't get it. So, of course, Italy figured this out pretty fast. And within 2 or so so days, they announced all the non-essential businesses would close.
Yeah.
That the bars would close, the restaurants would close, everybody stay home. And we saw some like auxiliary police kind of driving through, checking people. Why are you out? We heard stories that people have been fined for leaving their town to go to another town.
Yeah.
So the reality here is that statistically speaking, most people get it, but there are definitely some people who either don't get it or are just so upset at being bored that what I think people forget about Italy, because it's so different from America, is it really is very, very community based. It's such a community based place. Now, I'm not in a major city. I'm out in the countryside in a village of 1,500 people. And these 1,500 people are like literally one giant family. I'm convinced they're all cousins. And the fact that they can't see each other, I think is really deeply hurting a lot of them. I think they're not used to that. And I've heard that some people are going to the grocery store twice a day because it's human contact, not necessarily because, oh, I need something. It's like, people.
Yeah.
So I think it's very hard for Italians, not that it's easy for anybody else, but I'm lucky that I'm in a region that is one of the least affected.
Yeah.
I think the last count for our region was something like 400 cases total.
Yeah.
So we're at the bottom of the lists, you
Yeah.
know, we're just because we also have a smaller population where our whole region is 1 million people, but even so, we have about 400 cases, with I think 80 something people in the hospital and 16 or so of those in intensive therapy. You know, so for us personally, we're not hugely affected. We are abiding by the orders. We stay home, but we're also lucky that we're in the country. We have a little piece of land. We can sit outside. And I think this is probably very more psychologically taxing for the people who are I think about people in basement apartments with no windows. I think about people in city apartments who don't have a place to get a little bit of air. This is things we do to criminals in prisons.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't know how to tell someone to do something different. I would not say disobey the order so that you can, get more air. One of the jokes going around Italy is that the dogs are exhausted because you'll have someone in an apartment who has a dog and they go out and walk the dog, partially because the dog needs it and partially because they're happy to get outside. And then a neighbor who doesn't have a dog will be like, can I borrow your dog? Just to have a reason to go outside.
Yeah.
And so like these poor dogs, these fortunate dogs are being walked like a zillion times a day. So the running joke is the dogs are exhausted.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine. It is, like you said, it's psychologically very, very taxing. What do you think we can learn from the situation in Italy?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the number one thing we can learn from the situation in Italy is that too many countries are still too far behind. Italy had everybody locked down and all non-essential businesses closed as of Friday, March 13th. That means we're still not even 2 weeks into that yet. And if you look at some of the numbers for Italy, they're not really going down yet. And I think that's because we're not flattening the curve yet because of incubation period, which Dr. Gyles would know more about. But if you think about it, if people were still hanging out at the restaurant 2 weeks ago, they're still getting sick now, from what I understand about the incubation period. So I'm hoping that we'll see that this is working for Italy maybe next week when we get past that time period and we are on the other side of it. But at the same time, I know that we go to the grocery store. There's other people at the grocery store. We get packages delivered. Who touched the packages? Like, we're not all in the bubbles that we imagine. So I mean, I'm sure Gyles has pointed this out, but obviously we're just trying to reduce the number of people we're coming into contact with, both to get the virus and to spread it. And I think we have to remember that every single action counts, and it counts in a good way and it counts in a bad way. I don't think I've left our property since they announce the lockdown, my boyfriend will go into the village. He's got a stronger immune system than I do. But I'm sure whatever he's exposed to, I'm exposed to. He's right there. So, I mean, we're not staying away from each other, and neither are you two. So, I think people have to learn that these things sound severe and they sound scary, but it's what we have to do. And I think people are unprepared because none of their horror movies ever showed this reality. They always showed people running from stuff. Like, if we all just ran to the right place, we're going to find a little corner that doesn't have a virus on it. Well, guess what? Your horror movies weren't real and you're unprepared. Get with it now.
Oh, that is such a brilliant point. Yeah, it's true that any worst case scenarios have always been about removing ourselves from the threat by running somewhere.
We're just gonna run.
Yeah.
It turns out we just have to stay home.
Exactly. This is seeming to be the advice across the board. Italy, Germany, UK, US, certain parts of the US as well are now saying, you know, everyone just stay home. Did I detect a rolling of eyes there? Just
there might have been rolling of eyes there. I told Gyles that I don't read a lot of news. I like to say it's keeping me younger. I'm getting younger by not reading the news, but certainly I am looking at some headlines, and certainly I have American friends telling me what's going on in their areas, and many are choosing to self-quarantine because there aren't yet orders in their area. Some of them still think they can be social. Like my adopted parents in Arizona, my mom runs a hair salon. My dad works in a restaurant. And the hair salon is still open as of now. And I'm just like, oh my God. And my dad, pretty much no one's coming into the restaurant, but he's doing the food deliveries. He's 76. And I'm like, but I know that, let's be honest, what would their income be if they sat home? And my income's not fantastic right now. I can't support them. So I don't know what to tell them to do. Stop having work in businesses. It's so tough because so many people, not just Americans, don't have monster savings accounts.
Yeah. And that is another thing that this obviously crisis is showing us with regards to how sensitive we are to the kind of the weekly or monthly paycheck, that if that doesn't come, then, we're in deep trouble. And I've heard this kind of quip about job, meaning just over broke. You kind of just make enough money to pay your bills every month. And maybe this is also an opportunity for people to start thinking about, actually, how can I be more entrepreneurial in the future? Right now, it's obviously about survival and making sure we kind of get through this. But moving forward, we need to look at actually how can we build systems that won't immediately collapse if I'm not working for a week or a month.
I'm predicting some of the things I'm predicting, and my article will come out next week. I'm predicting people will make moves towards quality of life. If they can, they're not going to be in the 15 square meter apartment or the basement apartment. They're going to make moves for quality of life, which is going to spark more remote work. And that's just one of the things that I think is going to happen. People are going to be like, oh my gosh, you know what? After that, I don't think I want to be in a tiny city apartment anymore. I want to be somewhere where I could have stepped outside and sat in my yard.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some of the rumors or fake news that you've heard in your area, Debbie, and what are your thoughts on those?
If rumors and fake news? I'm not seeing too much of that. Honey, do we have a problem with rumors or fake news going around Italy? Well, our postal worker thought that this was like possibly some sort of weird conspiracy, but we thought the postal worker was weird. So are you hearing in general? I'm just asking my boyfriend. Sorry, this is live. Are you hearing any fake news? We're live. Speak. I got to speak double time. Get to the point.
Can bring him on air.
Yeah.
Okay, so he says some right-wing people are claiming the government isn't doing enough and we can do better, and shame on the government. I don't know what else the government can do. I mean, I just got a video from South Africa that they're rolling out the military to try to keep people in their homes. Do we want that?
Yeah.
So I think we have to wait for thank you, honey, the 2-week or so incubation period to pass, where now we're in the point where people have much less exposure. See what that is. Gyles and I can tell you from the world of CX and UX research, now we have to look at fresh numbers once we're in that new time period and try to see what's going on. But I don't read a lot of news, and I'm still learning Italian, so
Okay.
I would have to say Italians are very poetic people with good senses of humor, and most of the things I'm seeing passed around are freaking hilarious. There's people giving concerts on their balconies,
Yeah.
and they've turned lots of children's cartoons into memes about calling the police if you leave your house, and so I see Italians really leaning into their warmth and their community and their senses of humor right now, and just putting that out on Twitter and Instagram and stuff like that. But I'm not seeing too much fake news. I think if you want fake news, you're gonna have to look to America.
Yeah, that's on that note. we're gonna bring up our next guest. Thank you so much, Debbie.
Yeah.
And
So don't go away, Debbie.
exactly, don't go away.
All right, I'll hang out. Thanks,
if
guys.
watching has got any questions for Debbie, please write them down on the side. We'll still be asking questions, but we'll introduce our next guest.
Yes. So our next guest then is Dr. Anjalee Perera. So she's a former NHS doctor and now a writer, a business consultant, and career coach for doctors. So we're going to add her on now. Hello.
Hi, Gyles. Hi, Vanetta.
Hello. How you doing?
Hey.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm enjoying your broadcast. It's really, really great. It's really interesting.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank
Wonderful.
you so much.
It's wonderful to actually have you to join us. So I've actually known Anjalee for quite a few years now, and we both are kindred spirits in the fact that we both have actually formally left a career as doctors to go into other careers, still somewhat related to healthcare, but we've moved on, and this is a particular tough topic for both of us. Really, is the fact that there has been a recent call for doctors who have either retired, other healthcare professionals who retired, but also those who have left the profession. And it's difficult. You get letters from the GMC, General Medical Council in the United Kingdom, asking us to come back. The NHS formally asking us to come back, particularly with the call to arms that Matt Hancock has delivered recently. And so in particular, Anjalee, it would be great to just get your perspective on this, your personal experiences with this, because I know that you've done a recent article for The Guardian, which has highlighted your views. And, funny enough, we're actually in a WhatsApp group with a few of our other friends of ours who too have left medicine. And, there's strong opinions for and against going back, but it'd be great for us to hear your opinions on that, Anjalee.
Absolutely. First of all, I just got to apologize in advance. My little girl, my little 1-year-old, is having her bath right now with her dad. So if you hear any yelling in the background, I have barricaded myself inside our bedroom, but any screaming is just excitement. So don't worry.
No problem. Thank you.
So on Friday, I got the email from the General Medical Council saying that they were planning to temporarily reinstate the licenses to practice of doctors all up and down the UK. And there was this request, this call really, to ask us if we can come back and help with this crisis. On one hand, the argument is really compelling, right? I mean, this is an unprecedented situation. We've seen reports on the media about how doctors and nurses are struggling. We hear, of course, Gyles and I both, as you just said, Gyles, we have networks that still include currently practicing doctors. So we're hearing from our friends and relatives and our former colleagues about how hard it is on the front line, how scared they are, under-resourced they are. And so the drive to go back and help is really, really strong, particularly for doctors. That's why we went into medicine in the first place. We wanted to help people. We have this need within us to help in a time of crisis, and it's what we're trained for. This is exactly what we're trained for. So in that respect, I really feel the pull of that call. But on the other hand, it's not as easy as just putting my stethoscope back on and going back into hospital. I think the general public can sort of get a false idea of what medicine is like to practice from, you know, programs like Scrubs or Grey's Anatomy. And, you know, doctors, we don't know everything, and we don't have a kind of be all end all knowledge of the entirety of medicine. And even being out of medicine for a few months can mean that you are really behind with your skills, with your knowledge. You know, that the pace at which science develops nowadays means that treatments and skill sets and things like that, they change really quickly. So for myself, having been out of that system for nearly 5 years now, it is a very, very long time to not have practiced clinically. And so the idea, even though the concept of me going back now and really being thrown into, you know, what will be a crisis situation, you know, really being thrown into the deep end, that is worrying. I mean, it's scary for me, and it's also scary in thinking about the effect on the patients. You know, doctors are human beings, we make mistakes, and unfortunately the job that we do, and particularly at a time like this, mistakes can lead to fatalities. That's just the reality of it. So weighing up those risks and benefits are, I mean, that's a really, really tricky one. And you know, just from a personal perspective as well, I'm a mum now, as I said, I've got a little girl. So we've seen doctors die on the front line in this battle against coronavirus. And we know from anecdotal evidence that for some reason, we don't understand why, but it seems like healthcare workers are at a higher risk than perhaps younger people normally would be. We're not sure yet of what the science behind that is yet, but it is concerning hearing those reports. It absolutely is concerning, and particularly for retired doctors who are older as well, doctors who came to the end of their career and are now being called back, you know, in their late 60s and their 70s. You know, they would be putting themselves at a significant risk.
Yeah, I think the big thing, as just a suspicion of the cause of why healthcare professionals are more likely to die from COVID-19 is not just the fact that there's such high exposure to it, so there's a likelihood of getting it in the first place, but the fact that, and this is from my own experiences working as a doctor, I'm sure you can relate, Anjalee, you can easily, if you are on call and doing your 12-hour shift rather than your normal 8-hour shift, you don't know when you're going to take your break. You don't know when you're going to be able to have something to eat, something to drink, even to have a comfort break to go to the toilet. And that exhaustion that you have, not just because you're not resting, actually physically sitting down to rest, you actually don't even appreciate at times how much energy is used just to use your mind. People forget that actually is around 20% or so of all the body's energy is used just by the brain alone. It takes more energy to power the brain than any other organ. And if all you're doing is thinking and moving constantly and doing, you know, very specific tasks and skills, then actually, you know, you're going to be exhausted at the end of a 12-hour shift. Just thinking about it exhausts me now. But people aren't appreciating just how serious this is. And these doctors are not taking meaningful breaks, like particularly if they had any annual leave booked, that's cancelled. You know, and you do feel obliged to continue working even longer and harder because, you know, your colleagues are going to be thrown into such a difficult situation, and you've got patients who you know are going to die unless you personally carry on working, unless you actually stay a bit longer to help out with your colleagues. This is how you feel. And because of that, you're just overworked. And I think it's that which is probably making some of these healthcare professionals and particularly our doctors insanely at risk of just dying from COVID-19 when they get the infection themselves, because they're not taking that time to rest. Their immune system is dropping because their nutrition is not great, their hydration is poor. So even just developing the mucus to help bring anything in your lungs actually down into the stomach, if things get coughed up, you can swallow it so you're not continuing infection. Little things like this that the body's already trying to do to fight infection is just lost because these people are working too hard. On that, actually, it would be good just to know from just even a medical perspective and from your own experiences, what are things people can be doing to actually maintain good health? Because we hear so much about hand washing, which is surely going to make a big difference. You're going to reduce the spread of the disease. But is there anything in your opinion that you think we could be doing just to keep ourselves healthier?
Yeah, so we're all stuck at home at the moment, and it's a really weird situation. A lot of us won't be used to be working at home or even just being at home all the time. So that can really take a toll on
Yeah.
your mental health as well as your physical health. So it's really important to try and keep up some sort of routine and trying to get into the kind of a new state of normalcy, really. So if you are working at home, some good tips that you can try are, for example, get up and have a shower and get dressed as if you would go to work normally, and be ready psychologically for your working day. Um, I've had friends who have gone for a walk around the garden, and that's their commute. And then they come back in, and they actually physically leave the house and then come back in, and they're ready. They're in that place of mind for work. If you have kids and you've got childcare, say goodbye to them. Say that mummy or daddy is going to work now, and so you can't disturb me. So I'm going to go up to that bedroom, or I'm going to go into the dining room, wherever it is that you work. Try and create a space for yourself where you can work and not be disturbed. And also taking frequent breaks as well is really important. If we're working from home, you're stuck in front of a screen all day long. I'm lucky enough to have lots of experience in working from home. I've been working mostly remotely for the last 3 years, and to be frank, as a mum, it's a complete game changer to be able to work from home. But it is important to maintain that sense of routine, to have those breaks, and also to understand that there are limits on what you can do, even when you're at home, even when you've got all the home comforts. There still is a limit to what you can do at work. So it's really important to have a reasonable to-do list, a reasonable goal for the day.
Yeah, no, that's really, really valid advice. I think the other things that because I was highlighting this to some of my colleagues at work today, the fact that having those frequent breaks are important. It's very easy that as you're working from home to feel, well, I'm at home, I don't have to commute anymore. I don't need to go so far to get lunch anymore. So actually, it's okay if I work through lunch break. And then one of my colleagues admitted that he had 5 hours of online calls back to back, non-stop, no break, nothing. And I'm like, you wouldn't
Wow.
actually do that if you were in a physical office environment. Like, most people don't do that. Even just having to physically go from one room to another is part of a break, And on your journey, you can go to the toilet or something, but it's just not on to be working so hard like that. And I think the other thing as well to keep in mind is, just simple things like having something to drink, making sure you
Yeah.
have plenty of time to eat. Vanessa and I have been quite dedicated, actually, been increasing our vitamin intake, having the
Brilliant.
vitamin D, the zinc, B vitamins and the like, and it does make a difference. I for sure was getting the sniffles, and because I was taking vitamin C more for about a week or so, it felt like I was getting much better than normal. Like, if I was having a bit of a runny nose, I would feel symptoms for a day and a half, 2 days. It was literally just overnight, and I'm better the next day. And this is something you can take for granted, how to have good sleep, good nutrition, to maintain that good health. And, building on what you were saying about working remotely well, it's also thinking, well, how can I actually ensure that I'm still socializing? Calling friends, calling family. There's Netflix parties that you can do now, which has been available for a few years. People didn't realize, but you can share a Netflix account with somebody by, not sharing the account, but when you're both signed in, you can actually watch something, at the same time. And Disney Plus has just rolled out. I've been catching up on The Mandalorian. I've been catching up on Star Wars films. So yeah, it's important to have that time to devote to improve your mental health and your physical health.
Absolutely. Yeah, it kind of comes back to what you said a bit earlier about using your brain. That takes energy. Is taxing. So if you're having 5 hours of calls and you're not having that break, then it is exhausting, and it's important to remember that is still it's maybe not physically very taxing, although if you're sitting down for that period of time, that's not going to do your back any favors.
That's right.
But yeah, it's that mental cost that we need to be taking into account, and even just having a quick break, a little bit of physical activity, just walking up and down, even making yourself a cup of tea between those calls can make all the difference.
Definitely. So I think it's time that we're going to bring back in Debbie. I think it would be great to get both of you to have a chat about some additional points. So let's bring back in Debbie.
I'm back, everyone.
Hi,
Hello.
Debbie.
Hi there. So, yeah.
So we again, thank you so much both for joining us on our live stream. It's been some really valuable information that we've been able to receive from both of you, and I'm really interested in the fact because Debbie, do you work from home as well normally?
Yeah, I've mostly worked from home since 1995, so that's pretty common for me.
Excellent.
I did live in the San
Excellent.
Francisco area for a while, and I did go into jobs, but I always preferred to stay home, partially because I just think I'm more happy and productive here. Number two, camo pants. Number three, Duran Duran dance party. You know, so I do prefer to work from home. So currently I work for me, but I'm always looking out for other jobs if they're available. So that's my thing.
Okay, so with both of you working from home, I know Anjalee, you already mentioned quite a few kind of productivity boosting tips, but for both of you, what would you say is your number one tip to boost productivity if you're working from home?
Dr. P.
Oh. Number one tip, goodness. I would say, yeah, the to-do list. Yeah, definitely. I love writing lists. It's a bit sad. I write lists for everything,
I love
whether
it.
it be shopping, whether it be, you know, the friends that I've got to call next week. Just list. And that feeling, you know, that feeling of being able to tick something off. Do you ever write something down on a list just so you can tick it off? I do that all the time.
Absolutely, all the time. Brilliant. Okay, Debbie, what about you? Any tip?
I don't know. Just one would be tough. I'm probably more of a calendar person than a to-do list person. So
Okay.
like when I'm planning my day, I'll usually say, okay, I think I've got something that takes me a half hour. Let me put that down at 10 a.m. And then I think I've got something I need to do. Let me put that down at 11:30. But I space it out. And also, I said this on a call I did last night about remote work, and it's know when you have the best energy. I'm a morning person, so if I have
Yeah,
something that's
definitely
more, yeah, but my boyfriend's a night person, so I
Yeah.
know if I have something that's a little more brain taxing, like I write a lot of articles, I'll do them 8, 9 a.m. in the morning when I feel like I make sense, and try to leave more fluffy stuff for later in the day because Gyles, as a doctor, and Dr. P, I am allergic to caffeine, and so whatever energy I wake up with is all I've got, and I cannot artificially enhance it. So know when you're at your best and schedule things for then.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much for that.
That's really, really good advice. Like for me, there's times when actually 6 a.m. I could be really happy to start writing, you know, the next novel, you know, start playing on the PlayStation. And yeah, my wife will be very upset with me because it will just wake her up.
Yes.
So yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, and both of you also are in very much customer focused roles right now because Dr. P, as Debbie said, I like that. Are you also into UX/CX? Are you working in the field of customer experience or user experience at the moment?
No. So I work so I'm a marketing and communications consultant.
Yeah.
And then the other part of my work is the career coaching for doctors.
Okay, brilliant. But same way, both of you are very customer focused roles. Is there anything from your perspective that people can help with from home right now? So we're talking about, you know, the heroism of so many volunteers going and you know, some parts risking their lives and risking their health to help out with the NHS, for example. From your perspective, working remotely, working from home, what can be done? How can we help?
Wow. Yeah, that's a great question. I really think that acts of heroism don't necessarily need to be you know, doing something huge like going in and doing a hospital shift. I mean, of course, that is huge and that's amazing. But I think we all can perform little acts of heroism every day, simply by even just by following the rules and staying home where we can, and you know, making sure that our kids are home, all that kind of thing, looking after a vulnerable neighbor, checking in on your neighbors, making sure they're okay. Small things like that, they may not seem very big, but collectively as a nation doing that, they make all the difference, you know.
Yeah.
staying home is going to stop our NHS from being clogged up. It's going to stop people from dying. It is literally saving lives. So, I mean, if that isn't act of heroism, I don't know what is.
Yeah. Thank
what
you.
about you, Debbie?
I was thinking something along those lines, but she said it way better. So I'm going to go in a different direction because you can't beat that. She's totally right. And I think a key for a lot of people is going to be trying to find ways to recreate the social lives they've been missing. So I have a lot of people now who are contacting me, not a lot, but I mean, in my world, I have a small social circle. So to me, it's a lot, but people are like, hey, let's plan a video call. And so, there's lots of video call systems that are free. People can get on Google Hangouts and FaceTime and whatever works for their phone or their computer, and see if you can do video calls, especially with the people you shouldn't be seeing right now, like, or you're too far away from, like my adopted parents who are 76. We just did a video call with them on Sunday, and from Arizona. And right before that, I did a video call with my best friend in San Diego. So I think fill your day, make sure you've got the unlimited data or have a good home internet, and fill your time with video calls. Talk to humans. Don't just text them. Don't just send an email. Talk to humans. It's time for us to get back in that habit rather than the texting. Talk to humans from a distance.
Thank you very much for that.
Stay away from me.
Love it. Thank you so much.
There's another question I wanted to just to ask before we start to wrap up. I've already asked you, Debbie, but particularly to you, Dr. P. What sort of rumors or fake news have you heard that you've had to try and debunk? Because I definitely get a few WhatsApps now and then where people are telling us nonsense, quite frankly. What sort of stuff have you faced that you've had to debunk yourself?
Oh my goodness, yeah, so much fake news. Chain letters going around. I didn't even know chain letters were still a thing, but apparently they are. I heard something similar to what Debbie said earlier, actually, about this rumor going around that it wasn't the virus killing people, but fear of the virus that was causing death.
Nonsense.
Which is just, I mean, I have no words. I don't think you need a doctor to debunk that theory. Some interesting ones about and these were sent to me actually by family who they're well educated, and they've got their heads screwed on, but they sound kind of scientific, so they sound like they might work. So things like drinking water every 15 minutes, warm water every 15 minutes, will protect you guaranteed from the virus. Now, there is some scientific basis in truth around this. If you have dry mucous membranes, then yes, they could in theory get cracked, and yes, in theory, that could put you at higher risk of catching a virus. However, drinking warm water every 15 minutes is not a guaranteed protection. So by all means, stay hydrated, stay healthy, but don't be running to the kettle every quarter of an hour thinking that's going to help you. I think another one of the more dangerous ones that have been going around, thanks to a certain president of a certain country.
Who drank the poison?
Yeah, chloroquine. So it's an anti-malarial chemical that is used. It is used medically, but unfortunately, there is another version of that that's used in fish tanks, and so that rumor went round, and unfortunately, that couple died. So. I think was the husband died, and
the husband died. The wife, sorry, she's
in critical care.
In critical care. So yeah, that's a really awful one. So I mean, just I would urge caution. If you hear something, if you're not sure about it, reach out to a medical professional and ask, and just find out before you do anything, before you take anything that could potentially put your health at risk. Just reach out and confirm that information is true.
Yeah.
No, that's right. It's very, very important advice there. One of the rumors I was hearing was the fact that apparently from Stanford, just saying from Stanford, like that's going to mean anything, but from Stanford, there's doctors who are saying that if you can't hold your breath for more than 10 seconds and without coughing, that you're going to have 50% of your lungs fibrosed. And I'm like, this is absolute nonsense. There's a lot of people who legitimately can't hold their breath for 10 seconds if they've already got underlying lung disease. Furthermore, you don't get fibrosis of the lungs from COVID-19 in the matter of a couple of days. It doesn't happen like that. So, You know, it's quite dangerous when you get stuff like that. Like, if you don't actually understand the science, then do a quick Google search. And very often, if you copy and paste some of the text from, or the whole text, in fact, from a WhatsApp message or text message that's been sent to you into a Google search, if it quickly comes up to a fake news page, there's your evidence that it's all a lie. It's all fake news.
Yeah.
And people aren't doing this. They just send out information that they have received without scrutinizing it. And it's very, very dangerous.
Yeah.
Now, another thing, and it is difficult because I have seen the therapeutic benefits personally of having like what we would say is a garlic ginger tea. So you mix chopped up garlic and ginger, and you boil it down with some water, and you drink that with some lemon juice, some honey, maybe even a shot of rum if you want to make it extra special. And this can help with fighting a fever because you're having a very hot drink. And there are antimicrobial, infection and anti-inflammatory properties to garlic and ginger and the like. And it's a comforting, tasty drink. But that in itself does not cure disease. All it's doing is just helping your body to do what it's already doing. And in fact, when people are taking antibiotics, you know this even as well as me as well, Dr. P, the fact that when you're taking antibiotics, taking antiviral medication, you are helping the body to continue to fight. It's very rare that taking these extra medication is the only reason that you're getting better. It's helping the body fight the infection that it's already fighting. It's just that there's times that without the extra support, you were never going to recover. And that because you're having the extra support, you're recovering a bit quicker. Yeah, please do.
Medical question. So I read this, and I don't know if it's fake news or not, but I saw that people should avoid taking ibuprofen and non-steroidal anti-inflammatories because there's something about them that seems to increase your chances of getting it or make the coronavirus worse. And so I know people who are going off their Celebrex and off of their rheumatoid arthritis drugs. Should these people do that? Is that right? Is this fake news?
That's a very good question.
Yeah, that is a good question. So the advice at the moment regarding non-steroidals like ibuprofen is that they shouldn't be taken as a first-line treatment. If you feel like you have a fever, if you feel like you might have COVID, the best thing is not to take them. Now, the reason for that is that they're anti-inflammatories. So as part of the body's natural reaction to an infection, fighting an infection, an inflammatory response is created by your body, by your immune system. And so drugs that dampen that down can possibly interfere with that inflammatory process. Now, we don't know yet because coronavirus is so new and we don't understand completely yet the pathophysiology of it. We don't know exactly how ibuprofen affects it, but the advice is to stay safe and avoid it. However, for people who are on regular anti-inflammatories, people with long-term conditions like rheumatoid arthritis, it's really critical to stay on their treatment plan. And I would advise anyone who is in that situation to speak to your health professional, speak to your doctor, and figure it out with them what would be safest for both your chronic condition and protecting yourself in our current situation.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you. That was so it's not fake news, but the advice needs a little fine tuning.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Exactly. Thank you so much for that, because we obviously we've heard a lot about that as well. So just to point out, and we've had in the comments about chloroquine, and Morocco apparently is buying the entire stock of chloroquine from Sanofi. And this is what happens when people are not fact checking things, And yes, of course, we would all love for our leaders to give us the truth, particularly in a time of crisis, but that can't necessarily always be guaranteed. So we need to make sure we're fact checking what is particularly, and we know who we're talking about. So particularly when it comes out of President Trump's mouth, you need to fact check it, because even the professionals and experts around him are debunking the things that he's saying.
It's really, really frustrating, because whether you're a supporter of Trump or not, actually not getting the right facts out to people is just unacceptable from world leaders. From anybody, really.
Well, it's already killing people.
Yeah, it's literally killing people.
It literally is.
I've got a quick thing to add to that. So today I heard from my video editor in America who said that her younger brother is pretty sure he's got coronavirus, COVID-19. And he went to see, I don't know if he went to a hospital or a health professional. I don't know where he went, but he was turned away and he was told he would not be tested because he didn't look sick enough. And my thought was, we have to remember that some of these countries' numbers look artificially low because they're not testing enough. I don't think Italy's testing enough, but they're testing 20,000 people a day. I don't know how many tests they have, but in America, there exists this person, and there's probably more like them who should be tested, and they're being told, no, you don't look so bad, go home.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
And I think something that we need to be aware of is, yes, testing isn't, you being tested doesn't mean that you're going to get cured of it. The test isn't going to be the cure, of course. We know that. But a test can help you identify that you definitely need to self-quarantine for the 14 days or whatever your country's telling you. And it also allows you to contact the people that you've been in contact with for the last 14 days so that they can make sure that they're staying safe. Because we have instances of people who might be carrying the virus and are not ill at all, are not presenting any symptoms whatsoever, and are passing it on to people who are vulnerable, and they will then suffer the consequences. So, yeah,
absolutely. I mean, the more information that we have, the better the chance that we have of curbing, of flattening that curve.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, in the UK, we're in the same situation. We are not testing enough. People with mild cases are being told to stay at home. And obviously, if you have mild symptoms, you're not going to suffer that much from it. You're just going to feel a bit poorly, and you'll get better. But the whole bigger picture is that we're trying to understand where this virus is going, how it's spreading, and if we don't know those numbers, then we don't have an accurate picture of that.
Yeah.
Okay, then. Well, we've come up to nearly the top of the hour.
Yeah.
So just before we leave, what any parting words, something positive to leave us with, Dr. P?
Yes, actually. So today, a new initiative was launched by King's College in conjunction with Gyles and St Thomas's Hospital. They're doing an amazing thing with an app that you can download, and it's a symptom tracker. So whether you're well or whether you're feeling a bit poorly or really poorly, you track your symptoms every day. You just log in. It takes a minute to do, and that is allowing the scientists behind that app to record information, and it's going to help to fight this epidemic. So please check that out.
Wonderful.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Do we know sorry, did you mention the name of the app? Do we know the name of it?
It is called, let me just check my phone. 1 second. It's called COVID Symptom Tracker.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And yourself, Debbie?
Positive? Yeah. No, I'm a positive person. I just feel like now's the time to do a lot of projects you pressed pause on. You want to write that great novel, Gyles, you write it. I don't know if anyone will ever see it, but you start it. And there's a project you want to do with your kids or something, just freaking do it. And so I think it's just a time to open up those old lists or open up those old dreams and work on them, because what else are we going to do right now? And we need things to occupy our minds and attention.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that, Debbie. And that kind of ties in with one of the comments that we got from Natasha with regards to personalizing the statistics. We spoke about this earlier about, we sometimes forget that there are people dying with dreams, talents, and visions. But for many of us who might not be ill, who might not, be struggling right now, as Debbie was saying, now is the time to realize those dreams, those visions, and those talents, so that, we're making the most of the time that we have.
Definitely.
Yeah. Thank you so much, both, for joining us.
It's been a real pleasure having you join us. Thank you so much for your contributions. And I think you've made a massive difference, actually, to this second episode, trying to get some more facts out there, trying to deal with some of these fears that people have, and just keeping up the faith.
And is there any way that we can anywhere we can find you? If you've got any more comments or opinions, anything that you want to share as to where people can find you?
Pretty much everything I put out there is UX and CX related, which I think the audience might not be necessarily into. So I'm going to write down the Instagram for my dogs, because I think if there's anything you guys need right now, it's Instagram for dogs. So you can get to know my hilarious dogs, and it's Italian, and it's spelled Canetti Perfetti.
Brilliant.
So I think that's my positive contribution. I don't think you guys are going to be interested in my CX and UX business. If you are, deltacx.com. But otherwise, follow my dogs on Instagram. They're hilarious.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Debbie. Thank you for that.
What about you, Anjalee?
So I've got my blog, thedisillusionedmedic.com, where I talk about the journey of leaving medicine and starting a new career. And you can also find me on Twitter and Facebook at disillusionedmed.
Brilliant.
Wonderful. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank
it's been
you
a real
so
pleasure.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. See you around.
Bye.
Stay
Bye-bye.
well.
Yes, you too.
Bye-bye. So yeah, that's the end of episode 2. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Yeah.
We will, I think we're gonna just commit to this.
Yeah.
For a while.
Yeah.
So we'll do another one next week, Wednesday as well. Thanks again for joining us. Please do leave your comments in the recording that will be left now. And yeah, we look forward to speaking to you again soon. Please stay safe.
Yes. And thank you to all who have commented and asked questions, sent in questions. We see Tracy, Tasha, Shadow's Dream. Thank you so much for that. And yeah, all the questions have come from elsewhere as well.
Wonderful.
So yeah, enjoy your evening and stay safe.
Bye for now.
Bye.